Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to NPU Live. I'm Keri Rodriguez.
And I'm Tim Langen.
Today is May 19th, 2020. It's a Tuesday, right?
Sure.
Well, at least we know it's Tuesday. I had kind of a rough teacher Zoom yesterday. The teachers didn't even know what day it was. So, my goodness.
Little professional tip, and then we'll get into more details about it. I know it's funny to joke around saying we don't know what day it is during the pandemic. We actually do. We're just being funny. For teachers out there, or any professionals who might be speaking to a customer
or a parent.
Yep, or maybe one of your superiors. Maybe you don't want to say you don't know what day it is.
We'll get into that in just a few minutes. It's a beautiful morning in Boston. We'll
be
talking to our friends in California. I'm really excited. Checking in with Mira Brown from Austin, Texas.
This is great.
And prepared parents. But first, we got to see what's happening in the news. So what's up?
Well, in COVID-19 news, the case total has risen to 1.54 million confirmed cases in the U.S. 1.54 million, and 90,694 confirmed deaths in the U.S. right now, up from 1,000 yesterday. That's 90,694 confirmed deaths yesterday. In other COVID-related news, and I'm going to make sure I get this, I've been practicing.
Okay, I'm ready for it.
And I'm just going to say this. It's President Trump is taking hydroxychloroquine. Hydroxychloroquine?
Hydroxychloroquine. Something like that.
Anyway.
The drug that has been ruled out.
Ruled out.
By the CDC yesterday.
See, I don't have a lot of practice saying it because I don't plan on taking it because I don't have malaria. Because that is actually what it's used to treat. It's also used to treat, in some cases, lupus and arthritis.
Yeah, So he kind of dropped that bomb on everybody yesterday. He's taking it as a preventative measure.
For malaria?
No, for COVID-19.
Okay.
You know, I don't know what to tell you, folks. I got nothing, okay? This is a medication that... the only people I know who take it are folks who have lupus, which is just a devastating disease. It's actually pretty hard to get in limited quantity for the folks who actually need it. And folks that don't need it can get pretty sick from it. So, But somebody told Donald Trump that this could possibly be a preventative measure or a cure. No coincidence either that he's actually connected to the business end of the people who manufacture this drug. So there you go. What more to say about that?
I got nothing.
Which may be the reason why in yesterday, when we revealed in yesterday's news the data from the National Parents Union poll, we asked parents, we asked families across America in our national survey this week. We said, who do you trust to tell you it's time to open the schools? Donald Trump coming out with only 5%. 5%. They, when it comes down to Fauci versus Trump, parents going with Fauci, the CDC, the NIH,
the experts,
state and local health officials. Not going with even governors, not going with superintendents. The superintendents only coming out, sorry guys, I know quite a few of you watching here, but you're only at 8%, Donald Trump at 5%. So elected officials not doing well in our poll, parents across the country saying, we're gonna stick with the scientists and doctors.
Well, even like Governor President Cuomo will admit, he is much better at making meatballs than giving out medical advice.
Yes.
That's right.
I just find it fascinating because, we are in such a divided nation. We are. And certainly, I have a particular point of view. Others in the National Parents Union have a different point of view. We can come together, talk about our different opinions. And but boy, oh boy, when the rubber meets the road, about 35% of this country rock solid behind Donald Trump. When you see those approval ratings, he always comes out, and people are like, who are these 35%? We know that there are Republicans that really support this guy. But when you double click on that and you say, would you trust him to make the call on your kids? The answer, no.
No.
The answer, no. Only 5%. lots of interesting findings in yesterday's poll of parents across America. Also releasing our Bill of Rights, which a lot of people are very excited about. A lot of work went into this. I got to tell you something. It's inspiring. This morning, 8 o'clock this morning. So let me.
Can I take this one over here? I'm very excited about this. I wake up, I stumble up. I have multiple calendars, and I see that I have an 8 a.m. meeting to talk about National Parents Union.
Actually building the union.
Building the union, and I'm like, this must be incorrect. And I jump on Zoom, which is just a reflex now, and I see some of the most amazing human beings I've ever known in my life.
From across
wide awake, except for Vivette. We're gonna get her some coffee. From across the country, one of whom, the incredible Marisol Marusha, up at 5 a.m.
From San Diego, California.
From San Diego, California, up at 5 a.m. Nehemiah Frank, Wendy Neal Gonzalez.
From Texas.
From Texas. Colleen Cook. Judith Yanez.
From Arkansas.
That's right, and Vivette Duke.
So yeah, they were all up and they were bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. They were like ready to go, and they're having their meeting about literally, some of the nuts and bolts about welcoming new members into the National Parents Union, because tons of folks, it's like drinking from a fire hydrant over here. Lots of people excited about the work that we're doing. We want to welcome more people in, and they're figuring it all out, because that's what we do with the National Parents Union. We don't need to tell these folks. They can figure it out.
Nope.
And boy, are they doing it. They're doing it at 5 a.m. Pacific Standard Time.
That's right.
Boy, oh my goodness. And they were all chipper, excited, asking great questions. I was not ready for the questions.
I wasn't ready either. I'm like, whoa. Huh. I mean, my egg McMuffin and my iced coffee, yikes. But I'm proud of them. Oh my goodness. Good work.
Great job. And that's why, this organization's a little different.
That's right.
A little different flavor. It's run on love. And they love the organization, they love the work they do, and that's why they're willing to get up at the crack of dawn.
That's right.
Because that's what parents are about.
That's right. It does not run on hydroxychloroquine.
It does not, and we don't run on baker's hours. So we love all of you. Thank you for doing your work this morning. I know they probably jumped right onto the Facebook page and they're spreading the word, because that's how we get to over 1 million views a week. Too, is because all of our delegates spread the word every single morning. So
that's right.
Pretty powerful stuff. Yeah. Anyway. Anything else in the news we need to know?
That is it.
Got a lot coming up this week. Really excited. Tafshir Cosby, our beautiful delegate from Newark, who is leading the charge for our Every Family Votes campaign across the country. I can't wait to pick her brain. We're going to get everybody to register to vote online. Only 39 states allowing that, but we're going to fight to make sure all 50 states, DC and Puerto Rico, wherever the National Parents Union is, we're going to be advocating for online voter registration. And then we're going to need to vote by mail.
We will.
We're going to need to do it.
And I'm not going in.
Has led the charge in New Jersey, and so we're gonna launch this nationwide. So excited to talk to her. Angie Camacho from Boston, Edith Bazil from the NAACP joining us, and then our friend Kwame. I'm so excited that Kwame is coming on. Our identity talk teacher. He is just fire, and 5th grade teacher, math teacher. That brings, it's a culturally infused vibe he brings to our children, and kids just love him. And now he's helping to mentor other teachers. So, and he's a daddy, and he's just a great guy. So I'm excited for Friday too. So stay with us.
I'm excited for Thursday. And our viewers know why, because Thursday is the Dad to Dad show at 4 p.m. I like how that title's grown on you. But I'm going to pose a question right now to all the dads out there, because I was in a certain spot last night. Is it okay for men to watch The Notebook?
I think men should be required to watch.
I know the answer, but I'm going to save that up, and I'm going to discuss on the Dad to Dad show at 4 p.m.
So Tim, just kind of letting you behind the curtain, Tim actually watched The Notebook for the very first time yesterday.
I'm not going to give my opinion, because I don't want to.
He was kind of like, that girl.
Let's put it on. Let's put it on.
It's whatever. You want to watch a chick flick. We'll indulge you. Let's watch The Notebook. Had no idea what he was getting into. Had no idea what was coming.
Did not see that coming. Didn't see that coming.
Yeah, it was an emotional roller coaster.
It was. I'm not gonna go there yet. I'm gonna let the dads out there in Dadland give their opinion on whether or not it's okay to watch The Notebook as a male.
Well, of course it's okay, but is it okay to feel?
To feel? Well, let me tell you
all the
something. I'm just gonna
feelings
say,
that-
if you don't feel something at the end of the Notebook, you have no soul.
I can't wait because you know, again, just behind the curtain, you know, somebody here was like, "Oh, that was great! Oh my goodness!" But a lot of feelings were happening, so
I
I'm
don't
gonna
sound
have
anything
to
like
tune.
that,
Hi, would you like a Cliff Bar? I think was what you said.
but whatever.
But so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tune into Dad to Dad to learn a little bit more about this guy and maybe our relationship too, because that's where I get all the insights.
Ooh.
It's on Dad to Dad, so don't miss it.
Anyway, speaking of insights,
4 p.m.
I need some
Men opening
insights.
up.
I need some insights right now.
See how he just moves it along.
See how we did that?
Just moves it along.
To Mira, look out my window in Austin Brown.
Yes.
Let's get her on.
Mira,
I need some. I need some
save
insight.
Tim from Austin,
I need
Texas.
some insights. Let's get her on that screen.
Yeah. Oh man, Tim needs a life preserver over here. Mira, good morning. How are you?
I'm good. I don't know if I'm going to be very helpful. I love that movie.
Oh, it's so
It's so good. It's such a good. I've tried to get Ben, my husband, to partake in it with me. No go. He just walks out of the room.
No.
What?
What does he say? He just outright refuses to watch it.
He just outright refuses to watch it. I mean, I haven't tried, in fairness, and probably, God, when did that movie come out? Anyway, it's been a while since I last tried, but I read the book and then I watched the movie and then I watched the movie again. And then anytime it's on, I watch the movie. And every time I'm like, watch the movie with me, he walks out of the room.
Oh,
Well,
man.
I think it's because how it was marketed. Like, I look at it, and first of all, the first 45 minutes, guys, you have to be patient because it's all swans and going across this river for 45 minutes and a rowboat. And you're like, I'm clicking the screen, like, is my computer broken? And it's marketed like a Hallmark movie.
Yeah.
This is not a Hallmark movie. Give it a chance, guys. Give it a chance.
I think we got a super fan over here.
I think we do. I'm going to have Ben listen to this part of the broadcast, so the next time it's on, he watches it with me.
Well, this guy was being a tough guy. Oh, it's fine.
I'm like, Nicholas Sparks.
And then,
oh my
and then
God.
he's over here on the side of the couch texting all of his dad to dad friends. He's like, oh my God.
Oh my God, what are you guys doing? I'm watching The Notebook. Anyway.
Dads across the country finding that solidarity.
That's right.
Oh my goodness. So
Whether you should watch it or not, that still sounds like a way better evening than I had. So sitting on the couch and watching The Notebook.
Help me live here, Mira. We need you.
Our tip for today. And so Notebook, you actually want a tip? Okay. So our tip today is actually about boredom. I think it's interesting.
Please help us with this, Mira. Our children are so bored.
I was going to ask you, how often do your kids say they're bored in the last 2 months?
How often did he say it this morning? So this is my son, Matthew, who is texting me memes that he's looking up this morning because he's so bored and Zoom is so boring and he doesn't want to do school. I said, well, at least talk to mommy, send me some memes. Like, let's try to shake it up and make you laugh a little bit. But yeah, so I'm getting 5,000 memes that he is texting me because he's so bored. Everything's so boring.
I can't take my kids out for a walk around the block.
Too boring.
If it is a 10-minute walk, it is 8 minutes of saying.
That's exactly what my son does, Keri. He does the
it's the worst. It's horrible.
I will say it has given us the opportunity to really see a new side, the dramatic, like very dramatic.
Yes.
I think we have young thespians among us.
We do. Yep.
The drop, the hand.
The internal suffering.
Oh, it's so bad.
Good, I'm not the only one. Well, I mean, parents really are. This tip came about for a couple of reasons. The first being that pre-pandemic, I think a lot of parents heard, I'm bored, there's nothing to do, I'm so bored, and in the pandemic, in our own homes, right, I think it's only, for a lot of parents, this is only increased. And parents are wondering, like, do I have to, like, should I let my kid be bored? What do I do? And so I think what's really interesting about this is I was reflecting on this with Gabriel, because Gabriel's the same way as Matthew and your kids, right? There's just like every day, there's just nothing to do. I'm so bored. And I sit there and I look around our house and I'm like, I see books, I see toys, there's a backyard, there's a soccer ball, there's a scooter. I'm like, dude, you have so much stuff. Do you know how, and I go into this, like, do you know how lucky you are to have all of this stuff? How can you possibly be bored?
Mom, my legs are so tired, my body's so tired, and my brain is bored.
I'm thirsty. I'm so
bored.
thirsty. What was up with being thirsty? I was never so thirsty when I was a kid. Do they have less water now? Jesus.
Or on my son deals with it with like, I'm hungry. His thing is I'm hungry. Like he'll get on the Zoom for class, and then like within 3 seconds of the Zoom, he'll put it, you know, because they're on mute, like, Mommy, I need a snack. I need a snack. I'm so hungry. I need a snack. I can't concentrate. I'm so bored. I need a snack. And you're just like, oh my lordy. But I think part of it is that, at least for my son, I was reflecting on this, he's used to a really active, sort of constant, engaging environment. Very different, I think, in some ways than how we grew up, right? He's always playing with someone. I mean, he has his cousin next door, so he's literally always playing with someone. He has his iPad, which is a mix of certainly video, but also, you know, like there's always something there, whether it's Prodigy or whether it's, you know, a video game, Minecraft, there's always something on it, right? That like constant stimulation. He's constantly seeking motion. And his natural instinct, and I think a lot of our kids' natural instinct these days are to look sort of outside of themselves, right? For that stimulation. And often we say we're bored because when we have nothing but ourselves to distract ourselves, that's a really uncomfortable, it's very uncomfortable, right? To know that, and that feeling of comfort comes out of, I'm bored. But like everything I share, when you dive into the research, their boredom is not pointless. Boredom has a purpose. And I think that this is where it's really helpful for parents, especially right now. Our brains are not actually wired to just do nothing. They're not. They don't just switch on and off. You can't, you know, we use that expression, I want to switch my brain off, and it doesn't actually ever, right, switch off. It's always searching for something. And so this is what makes boredom so important to our kids, because when you're bored and your mind starts to wander, you get into sort of what they call, right, like daydreaming, or it's where creativity starts, right? Because that is when your brain is actually, when it's bored, working really, really hard. It's tapping into memories. It's imagining future possibilities. It's replaying past like interactions, things that happen. It's like reflecting on how you feel and who you are. Like it's in motion, right? And that can be really uncomfortable when you're not, that's being inside yourself. But that's what sparks creativity and problem solving, right? And all is when you actually let yourself be, you let yourself be bored. That's the purpose of boredom. I think there's another side of the coin that's really interesting just to talk about before I get into sort of what do we do about that with our kids, is that it was really only a short generation ago that parents believed in boredom, right? Like I remember growing up, my parents would be like, it's not my responsibility to entertain you. Like go play, right? They were working on weekends. They weren't around, like they were fixing the house that was like falling. Like there was just always stuff. They were busy, and like I was left, I mean, not in a dangerous way, but like we were left to entertain ourselves, and I was bored a lot as a kid. And what has happened over the last 30 plus, you know, four decades is that societal expectations have actually fundamentally shifted. Parents are expected to be more hands-on, more engaged. All the while we're working more, we're working longer hours, we're working harder, we're not really seeing the benefit of any of that, right? Like, so parents, our generation of parents are in a spin.
Mira, this is so true. And I think there was an article a couple of years ago in the New York Times about this, about how like we really degrade ourselves as parents if we're not constantly entertaining them or doing something. Like I actually have to deprogram myself from a lot of this stuff because I was recognizing like every weekend we were doing something. I was constantly entertaining them. We were going to Land and Sky Zone, and we were like, let's go to the park. Let's go to do this art project at the pottery place. Let's do. And it was exhausting. Or we had soccer, we had karate, we had baseball.
Extracurricular, something. Yep.
Constant entertainment. So what I was noticing is that like my kids weren't developing the skills of just how to sit with themselves.
Right.
How to they had no time to like figure out what they like, use their imagination, interact with one. It was always like this scaffolding of like trying to figure out who they are and forcing them into something that, I actually had to put a stop to it, where it was like, okay, like, today on Saturday, we're going to do one thing. But we're also going to go grocery shopping, and we're also going to clean the bathroom, and we have to do some stuff in the yard, because this is how we make our family work.
Right.
Like you're going to help too, or you're going to go and you're going to play and you're going to figure out what you want to do, because like that's how you build that muscle, that life skill. But
you're totally, we're in, and again, when you're the interesting thing is how it's become. I mean, there's a reason why all of these terms of helicopter parent and like all of these things, these terms that we've used in judgment of parents have come. I mean, they've come about because society has changed its expectations for parents, and parents, our generation of parents, feel it, because when you're not doing those things, other parents, oh, your kid's not in, and you're not participating in soccer. Does your kid play a sport?
Don't you know Chinese is offered on Saturday?
Right. You're not in weekend tutoring. It's as if time has become the competition, right? And parents are exhausted. And we think that there's a fear of letting our kids essentially just be, right? There's a fear because somehow what we've been told is you're leaving your kid behind then. Yep. And again, don't get me wrong, and we'll talk about it in a second, like there's obviously exposing our kids to new experience, everything we've talked about for the last 2 months around curiosity and exposure is super important. But there's a difference and a balance between that, right? And having 50 activities on a weekend and during the week and micromanaging our kids' time and things like that. And there is and it's a hard balance. And so where boredom comes from, and when parents say, she'll let my kid be bored, I mean, the answer is like everything else, right? But yes, like that, our kids being bored is what's actually going to allow them to develop those really important skills, Keri, that you were talking about. And so the next time our kids say like, I'm bored, like, what do we do? And I've been practicing it since working on this tip. It's, as usual, I'm happy to share things don't go over so well on my side, but I've practiced it. And so the first thing is, don't tell them what to do. I know and this one is really hard, and it's actually kind of funny because yesterday Gabriel told me he was bored, and I just kind of stood there and I said, okay, well, what are you gonna do about it? And it takes them a pretty long time to sort of accept that I'm like not going to. And it was literally like a staring contest. Like we both dug in it could have been like a Western movie. Like we both dug in our heels, we're like staring at each other, literally. And he's like literally being like, mommy, like I'm waiting for you to tell me what to do. And I'm sitting there being, Mira, don't do it. Just let him. And my husband walks in and we're having like a staring contest at each other. And I was like, and I literally put my hand, Gabriel said he's bored right now. He's going to figure out what he's going to do about that. And the reason why that was so important is that like, we actually do need to help like let our kids figure it out. We can't micromanage every moment of their time. And the truth of the matter is we have a lot on our plates. How do we have the time to micromanage every of their moments?
Like this weekend was a perfect example. Okay, on a Sunday, it was beautiful outside. Ugh. The windows were open, the doors were open. Everyone was so bored. It was so boring.
Go play in the dirt.
Everyone was so tired. And he was like, he kept saying, oh, go outside.
Here's some chalk. Here's some chalk. Go outside. Especially because we're in the city, so we don't have like a big yard. We can't go to the parks.
Yep.
There's only, I mean, it's good for me because there's only so many choices I can give them, and then eventually none. So I'm like, just go outside and do something.
And you know what they ended up doing? It was beautiful. It was really, really cool. Well, we should put up some pictures because it was awesome. They went in the front yard. There's like this little patch of dirt. It's like a patch because again, we live in the city.
Yeah, we don't
I grew up in New York. I know. I had a little patch too.
They pulled up the fabric because it's like a mulch.
Like this
on the,
tarp.
They pulled up the tarp and there were bugs and
worms and dirt and
roots.
And they were like climbing a tree.
And they were like, "This is the ecosystem." And
it was awesome. There you go.
You know,
and
it was not.
Because it takes a little while, but then their
Yep.
brains like, oh, I know what to do here. You're actually letting me explore and use my imagination and be creative, and we have to work together on this. And like, we actually have to we're telling a story to each other, right? And we're involving each other. Like and one of the tips is literally like, let your kids play, right? We have undervalued how important, and I do this too, in our quest to sort of the activities and keep our kids entertained and things like that. We've undervalued just how important play is. And we've talked about like, play is its own developmental state for a reason. Like there is a reason, just like boredom, play is important because it's how our kids experiment and learn how to work together and practice being an adult and self-direct and feel freedom and like all of these things. And that's exactly what your kids were doing. And as parents, we can give them the tools, right? We can give them the chalk or the little patch outside or
gave Max a ladder.
Oh, it's a ladder. Yeah.
A ladder.
You saw a hole in a tree. I'm like, well, go get the little ladder, buddy.
Go check it out.
Great. That's
and see what they do with it, right? Because it's actually like, when I step back, I have to say, like, there are definitely times where I'm like in awe at Gabriel's creativity, and my 2-year-old, but it's a little different with a toddler, but Gabriel's creativity. I'm like, I never would have thought, right? And maybe when I was a kid, I did, but like, it takes them, I think, kids a moment to sort of be comfortable with that feeling within themselves and then say, okay, like, I'm going to let my imagination go wild, right? And I'm going to just use whatever tools I have. The junk drawer, the stuff that comes out of our junk drawer, which is pretty much my entire first floor right now, but like the junk drawer is pretty amazing when you let them, when they just go. And the last thing,
soccer came to be.
Shovel soccer.
They invented shovel soccer.
Right.
Like, we would not have such a beautiful game in our lives if we had not just go out in the yard and figure something out.
And figure it out. And the last two things I would say on this front is that are helpful, and this is going to be ironic, but as parents, to your point, you said you had to retrain yourself. Like, we have to get used to downtime, and there's not a lot to be fair. There's not a lot of it right now. Like, but in general, right? And ironically, if you have to schedule in downtime to start, like, that's how you start building a habit, right? Like, to your point, making very explicit decisions over the weekend or whatever it might be. Like, we're doing one thing today. I will plan one thing. The rest of the day is yours. You figure it out, right? Type of thing. But we can't when we pack our schedules, we don't give our kids the opportunity to actually sit down and be like, what do I want to do today? What do I want to get accomplished today? What is my imagination going to let me do today? What do I want to experience or experiment or play, or whatever it might be? Those are really important skills for our kids to develop. And the last thing is, especially for our kids where this comes a little bit harder, like, we need to acknowledge, like every new skill, like everything our kids do, we have to actually acknowledge it and praise it. Like, wow, that's amazing what you guys just did, right? Because that's the motivation that will spur them on to want to do it more often. And sort of the example I'll give on that front is in my anxiety ridden, which happens every day, cleaning frenzies, because I hate messes. I was like cleaning up what looked like scraps of paper and like things. And Gabriel got so angry at me. He was like, "Mommy, you're throwing away my inventions." And I just like dropped them. I was like, his inventions. And they looked like the horrible thing, but literally they looked like straws that were being cut up. But they were his creativity and his inventions. And I had to stop myself.
Example of this right now. Hold on. Mira, you got to see. So right here in the corner.
Let me see. Wait, let me.
Yes, exactly.
I'm coming. That's a panda.
Yeah. I love it.
Okay, so look at this. It's a panda made out of an Amazon box.
Mm-hmm.
We have feet He has little ears.
Let me throw these over here because,
He even has a
a
tail.
little tail there, a little wiggly
Yeah.
tail.
We use black tape because, panda. And
Yep.
The little green part, that's where he's eating bamboo.
Oh, yeah, look at
And
that.
that's his little nose. The white part is his little nose.
I love it. Yep.
Yeah, like
Pretty cool.
that would happen during an epic bout of boredom, where I think Tim was cleaning the kitchen, I was cleaning the bathroom, and boredom happens.
Kids were bored.
And suddenly, when we were like, well, these are things we have to do to make the
That's
family
right.
run here, so go figure it out. This is what they figured out.
I have about 50 sticks highlighted in bright green because that's bamboo. It's bamboo.
Paint markers, but it was awesome. It was so cool, and it was like he was really thoughtful, and that was his invention.
Right.
So
That was his invention.
what happens when you're bored?
There you go.
You
get
get
it back.
creative. And so, yes, we should let our kids be bored, as hard as it can be for ourselves, for society, whatever it may, yes, we can let our kids be bored. A lot of great stuff comes out of this. And the next time our kids say they're bored, we know what we can do, and we don't have to feel any guilt about it whatsoever.
I love that. That's what I needed to hear, because my Sunday morning mommy is reading the paper time when everyone is dying.
I'm bored.
I need to know that I'm not psychologically damaging them while I read the paper.
We're not damaging our kids.
I need to feel better about not doing anything over the weekend.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. I didn't bring my kids somewhere. It's okay. We just had an easy weekend.
Exactly, because we're exhausted too, right? Like by the time we get to the weekends, we're exhausted. And again, like we can expose our kids. We can go to when things open up. Like they're the one thing we can do, absolutely. But no, I think as parents, we take on enough guilt as it is. Our kids can be a little bored. It's good for them.
Mira, we love this tip. This made me feel I needed
again.
this in my heart this morning. Thank goodness for prepared parents and Mira Brown from Austin,
That's right.
Texas.
And you can
Thank
go
you
and-
so much for being with us.
Yeah, and everyone should go to preparedforsuccess.org.
Yeah.
Sign up right now. It takes
You
less
can
than
get the
10
whole
seconds.
tip. You can get the whole thing, and
Every
then
day.
it'll be up on our social media.
Thank you both so much. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a
All
good
right. Tomorrow,
Bye.
Mira Brown from Austin, Texas. This is great. The other thing too, when it comes to boredom, when we are cleaning or like doing boring stuff, like bringing in the groceries and putting groceries away, all that kind of stuff. I think it's important to do boring things.
Yes.
Because like we're growing little men in this house.
Yeah.
So we want them to be functioning adults, and sometimes you got to do adult stuff.
Hell yeah.
And mom and dad aren't responsible for doing everything. Like if you want a family to run, it takes a lot of boring
Pick up those
work.
grocery bags, man. Take out the trash.
And it's so boring.
I know.
You know what I say to the kids sometimes? I'm like, I'm really bored of this too. Do you think this is fun for me?
Right.
Doing the dishes or putting groceries. It is boring, but that's what you gotta do to
that's
make
life,
our
guys.
family run. So sorry.
That's right.
Boring. All right. I love that tip from
That was a great one. That made me happy.
Excited for our next guest too. Really excited that Angelica Solis-Montero is with us.
I can't wait.
From the L.A. Coalition for Excellent Public Schools. We're going to talk to her about her fancy title and her fancy work, but I want to check in with her as a mama and see if she identifies with kids being so bored. Oh my God, we're so bored. Angelica, so nice to see you. Oh, I think we have you on mute.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. I, was laughing because my kids are younger, and so I don't get the "we're so bored" as often. They're 4 and they're 2. Although that very first week that schools closed down, I went like on overdrive. I think like probably a lot of parents, and I stayed up all night doing all the arts and crafts and like all the, activities. And I programmed my 4-year-old, around everything, including her playtime. And I remember like day 1, probably 30 minutes in, it was probably one of the first times she said to me, "I'm bored." And so of course, like now I'm far less structured, certainly around play. And like, she just, she is really creative and she loves to do her own thing. And, she plays really well with the 2-year-old. And But it was really great to hear this, because I know that as she gets older, the tendency as a parent will probably be to want to make sure she's enrolled in a million activities and doing a million things. But I see it from other parents, and it looks exhausting.
Pressure sometimes. I mean, we've got little boys over here, so it's always hockey and baseball and karate and oh, is he in a language? Is he taking a pottery class? Oh, are you in a play group? Are you going to Legoland? Are you going to Sky Zone? Are you like going all the time? So every single minute is like scheduled. There's like no unstructured time. For little girls, like I see this happening like it's the same stuff where they're in baseball and soccer and dance and piano and all of these different things. I'm exhausted just thinking about all the activities. Like we don't think about, what we might be putting our kids through in all of this.
Right. Yeah. And it starts early. I mean, she's only 4, but she's already, we do enroller and stuff, but our rule is like one thing at a time. So she can't be enrolled in soccer and dance and swimming. Like it's just, take it one at a time.
I wonder if it's more about us and our need to look as if we're perfect parents instead of it being about them. And I know that I have to take time to reflect and be like, well, do I want them in this because, it says something about me and that I'm a good parent because they're constantly doing something and look, they're achieving, and like, am I programming that into them because it's about me, or is it something they really like to do as human beings? My kids need chill time. They need time to chill, but they also like karate, so they do that as an after-school activity. It's not so much. There's not a lot of karate going on. There's maybe a half an hour of karate, but it keeps them off screens. They're playing with their friends. They're learning. Their sensei is like really like no joke about being respectful and building community. So there's like a different element to it. So it's more about like the community vibe that they're engaged in. And then on the weekends, like they just, they like to chill, they like to read a book or go outside and ride their bikes and, do little boy stuff, with sticks and bricks that they find, that's kind of what they do. So Angelica, tell us, I love having folks like you on because you're so connected to the community. Like you're living and breathing education justice. Like this is your everyday fight. But again, we want to make this personal. How is the quarantine going for you? We're into week 10 now. It's been a little bit longer in California. Is everything going by the book? Are you finding some things tricky? How's your family doing? How's your community?
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad to be here, and thanks for letting me share. It's hard. I think what we're experiencing at my home. So it's my husband and my 2 young children. And we've been at home since March 13th. My daughter just happened to get a cold the previous week, just before school closed down. And so that week we were already not going anywhere because she was sick and we didn't want to like expose other people to her cold. And so, it's challenging. There are some really good days and there are some tough days. The most challenging part is definitely trying to work while also keeping the house up, and while trying to entertain your kids and trying to ensure that my preschooler is still, getting on her Zoom classes and her lessons. And, it's been a little bit of everything. I think I try really hard to maintain perspective. I try really hard to be thankful and grateful for what we have, the fact that I'm still able to work, doing work that I think is really important and doing work that I think is really, especially now, very needed. But some days are just harder than other days here.
And Angelica, I appreciate you sharing that with us because, I think we all need to connect with each other as human beings. I mean, you run this incredible coalition in Los Angeles, which we'll get into, but you're also, a former social worker. I don't think you're ever a former social worker. I think that's interesting. But, even folks that that have extraordinary privilege, folks that can work from home, folks that, have all of these skills and tips and tricks and access to people and access to information and knowledge. It's not going perfectly for them either. And I think parents across the country need to hear that we're all in this together. It's a mess. Everything is messy. But the most important thing, at least from my perspective, is that we really hold on to strengthening the fabric of our families, because we can overcome learning loss, and we're going to hold people's feet to the fire to make sure our kids get what they need. But if we destroy our relationships, especially, in our own four walls, like, that's something that's really difficult. So do you have any advice putting on that hat for parents that may be saying, oh my gosh, this is so overwhelming in this moment? I want to take advantage of your background and expertise to see if you have a little advice for us.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. One of the things that's been really interesting about this social distancing and the stay-at-home orders that many of us have or had is that we've seen, and I've certainly experienced, the importance of staying connected to other people, right? Like, you can't physically be with other people in many instances, or you don't want to be because you're trying to, stay your distance. But like the connectivity, is still so important. So I've maintained, that connection through folks, right? Zoom and all kinds of other virtual meeting spaces have allowed that to happen. I make sure to check in on people. I appreciate when people check in on me, even if it's just to say, I'm thinking about you. Being able to share with folks, like, yeah, this is hard and it's not perfect. And I think the more you get to talk to folks, the more you reach out, whether it's colleagues, and it's, very often even professional conversations become personal, right? Because you begin to share with one another what the day's struggles are, or what the bright spots are, right? Like, you want to share like the one funny story that your kid did or that you experienced, just to be able to help folks maintain that level of connectivity. My advice would be for parents is to have grace on yourself, because it's going to get hard. And there are going to be good days and there will be bad days, but reach out to folks. You're not in this alone. I think there's a lot of commonality around what we're all experiencing. And so, I would really hope that folks are staying connected, and that are reaching out to one another, that they are reaching out through groups, like Facebook, like the NPU, that they're reaching out to family and colleagues, just to be able to, one, to check in on other folks, but also to be able to share their own experiences. I think that's really helpful for folks right now. It's been really helpful to me.
We're seeing that, and since the beginning of the pandemic, we've just watched, our little network explode to reach over 1 million folks every single week. And I think it's just because, we're just trying to connect with each other and just say, we see you, it's going to be okay. Like, this is what we figured out, or this is what's messy for us. And, just having that solidarity with each other has been that humanity, that grace. Yes. Has been critically important, and parents, especially families, seeking that, I don't know, like, being able to have a safe space where you can take a deep breath and say, gosh, this seems so big and I'm so afraid, and I don't know who to trust with information. I mean, we got a crazy president that is saying just the absolute most insane things in the world every single day. So you can't even trust like the people leading the government. Not that we could before, but my God, like, just struggling with, who do I trust for information? How do I hold on to my job? How do I hold on to my home? Things so tenuous right now. How do I hold on to my business or my job? And now I got to be a teacher and everything. Oh my gosh, is anybody else feeling this way? It's been critical to have those conversations. So I want to kind of get into this a little bit. You are running the LA Coalition for Excellent Public Schools. So you're a warrior on the front lines. And so we see you, girl, because across the country, so many of the activists in the National Parents Union are doing, again, this tough work of speaking truth to power, having uncomfortable, courageous conversations with folks that are very comfortable with the status quo that just doesn't benefit our, children like ours. And so it's always, this really tense fight. I'd love for you to kind of talk to us about your experience in LA. And then let's get into whether or not this is an opportunity for us to find some commonality with folks that in the past, we may have been butting heads with. So can we first start with what's happening in Los Angeles and what you're seeing right now?
Yeah, sure. So, so schools closed here on March 16th. And very quickly we began to hear from parents across the city, across the district, that were experiencing challenges with connectivity, sort of lack of information. But we also started hearing a lot of stories. I'm really fortunate in the work that I do is really centered around working collaboratively with successful charter schools here in Los Angeles. So we bring these folks together collectively to be able to promote and advocate for quality school options for all students in Los Angeles. It's really the core out of our mission. But we were hearing from other partners, folks, parents who were attending schools where they didn't have that personalization. They didn't have that counselor or that teacher reaching out in the first few weeks. It's really, really difficult. It was sort of compounded by the fact that after, I guess maybe about a week and a half into school closures, the teachers union came out and asked for a moratorium on charter schools here in Los Angeles. And what's more, they asked for charter schools that are co-located with traditional schools to be evicted. And so that brought about a lot of pain to families that were already very fearful, that were already experiencing the traumas of this health pandemic, and really sort of, I think for folks, highlighted the fact that even in challenging times, even during a health pandemic, we can't let our guard down, right? We have to be front and center.
So upsetting, like we have to stop and like underline the ridiculousness of that. We're in the middle of a pandemic, and I've been beaten over the head a couple of times, but I refuse to shut up about the fact that the idea that we are trying to advance longstanding political agendas, that we can't even put it aside during a time when we are in an unprecedented challenge, it's morally bankrupt. And I just don't understand, like, what has the excuse? Why would you evict schools? Why would you disrupt school communities when we know how critical they are to parents, especially in this moment? Especially the heroic work that we've seen, like many of our charter schools and frankly traditional schools do in these, like, why take advantage of this moment? What the hell does a charter school moratorium have to do with serving families in a pandemic? Like, what? I want to understand that. Do you understand that?
No, I don't. I mean, when you see all of the inequities that have come to light as a result of the pandemic, all the economic, social inequities in our communities, the way families are hurting when there is, fear of food insecurities and housing insecurity, you would hope that folks would rise to the occasion and want to be collaborative and want to come to solutions, right? When we see that a high percentage of our families don't have internet connectivity for a number of reasons, let's put our heads together and try to figure out how we support families now when there are so many challenges that they're already facing. Like, why don't we come together and come to some solutions? That's what we want to see from our leaders, right? Across the board. We want people to rise to the occasion and be solutions oriented, not add to the fears and the stigmatization of some of our families. And so it's really sort of beyond me. I don't understand it other than to say that it's obviously very politically driven. And so we're here to continue to share, one of the things that we did right away as part of sort of what we do is we began to engage family leaders And we started setting up meetings with elected officials and their staff just to share with them, like, this is what we are experiencing. This is how our schools have risen to the occasion. These are the areas that we think really are challenging for our schools, for our families. We thought it was really important for people to hear directly from the folks that were experiencing this pandemic as we were living it, right? Like, this is what is happening. And we want to be able to continuously remind all of our elected leaders and all of the key decision makers about who is being impacted, so that they can see beyond the politics, so they can really get to solutions, not get mired and like sucked into conversations that are really not productive, completely ill-conceived.
Critical in this moment. We don't need folks to speak for us. You know, there are so many that try to say, well, I'm here to speak for the parents, or I understand their perspective. You don't. You're not that close. You're not in conversation or community. And usually, when you hear that, well, I'm here to speak for the people who can't be here, or couldn't be here, or don't care, or all of those kinds of things, it's usually folks that are using that as an excuse to further their own political agenda, and saying, well, instead of inviting them to the table so that they can speak directly to those elected officials, as you're talking about. And it's critically important that we don't filter that we lift them up and say, we're not here to be your proxy. You go, like, you speak your truth, you talk about your family, and it doesn't have to be pretty and wrapped up and concocted and manufactured. Just speak directly. These are the folks who are supposed to be leading you, and they need to hear from you so that they actually give you the resources that you need, not what they think you need. And it's
yes, the parent voice is incredibly important. I think another thing that we've seen, unfortunately, is that the school board is meeting today for the first time virtually. For the first time since March, they're having their very first school board meeting. And they have asked that if parents want to come out and speak to the board, they have to go to the headquarters office in downtown LA. And what an injustice, right? When you're asking parents to take time away from the distance learning they're trying to provide for their children at home, head all the way into downtown. If you don't have transportation, you're going to have to put on your mask, get onto public transportation, get to downtown. Like, it's completely inaccessible when you should be able to provide a platform that is easily accessible to hear directly from families, so that they can share very specifically the stories of what they are experiencing during this time. And the district doesn't make it easy for them.
They do this to us all the time. We're always, public comment is always on the end. You've got to, like, I've been to meetings, you've been to meetings where you've got to wait 4 or 5 hours, but once they're done with their important business before parents can be heard, there's not translation provided. They're not even sure what you're saying. You've got 2 minutes, you better spit it out. You've got your kids with you. Every possible roadblock to make it difficult to actually hear directly from parents who are going to hold them accountable for the decisions that they make, the policies that don't work, the statements that they make, and really having to confront, the inequities that they're perpetuating. Like, that is just outrageous at this point. So are they still sticking to that? Are they still going to make parents go and physically show up during a pandemic to be heard?
Yeah. So today's meeting is on the books, and they've informed folks that they could either send in written statements, or they can go to downtown to provide public comment, which is just completely nonsensical. So of course, a lot of community activists are being very vocal about the fact that that is ridiculous, and that there needs to be come on, so many other districts have found ways to allow parents virtually to provide comments, to be able to share their experiences. There's got to be a way for the district to figure this out. It can't be that complicated. It can't be made that complicated for our families. Our families are already going through too much.
Yeah, and do these guys think that we're fooled by this? Like, it's quite obvious that you're not interested in hearing what parents want to say if you're making it as difficult as possible for them to speak to you. It's just
Right.
it's ridiculous. So once you actually get there today, Angelica, because I know you're going, I know you got parents who are going. What are you saying? What's the conversation? What's the message this morning?
I think the very first thing to say is that it's also become very clear that there are still a great deal of inequities. We're really concerned about the types of remote learning that some groups are getting over others. That it's still incredibly difficult for some families that continue to not have access to the internet, with so much learning taking place in the internet. That there are a lot of families that are challenged through language barriers, right? And that there aren't clear plans across the board that we're really concerned about the budget crisis and what it'll mean for families moving forward. There's just so much inequity that is happening. There are still a lot of students that are being left behind. We want the district to be really transparent about the data that will be available. We want the district to ensure that dollars are going to the students and the families that need them the most, right? Like, how are we ensuring that we're continuing to invest in students, in special education students, and in students who are English learners, and in foster students? Like, those are the types of questions that we want to make sure get answered. We want accountability for all of that. It's a trying time, and I think there's no reason why families should have to struggle so much when a system this large has to be able to come up with solutions for them. I think that's, these are issues that they have to come to account for. Yeah.
They come up with solutions for some kids, but not all kids. So we know it's possible. We know that. So Angelica, we're going to be watching very closely. We want to learn from you in terms of your fight for making sure that parents are able to actually just participate in the process. That is step one. And then, what we're trying to do is we're learning from parent organizations and coalitions from across the country about best practices around what data we need to ask for. Because it's so important. We've learned, as our organization here in Massachusetts, we've seen for our members in Tennessee, in Oklahoma, in Michigan, in Minnesota, in Florida, all using powerful examples of not just going and showing up with pitchforks, but demanding data. And we've got to work collaboratively as a parent community to figure out what's the data we need to be asking for. Is it how many times, kids have logged into Google Classroom or Clever or whatever, system that they're using, so that we can say, hey, our kids are clearly not accessing online education, because we can see from these logins. And if this is not correct, together, I think we could be brainstorming about, what are the things we need to be asking of systems so we can hold them accountable. But hold them accountable we must, because we left to their own devices, they weren't doing a great job pre-COVID-19. And what we'd like to see is an equity-infused educational recovery, not just going back. And frankly, our parent survey last week said by a 2-to-1 margin, American families say they don't want their kids shoved back in the old box, the old system, the status quo. This is a time to innovate, to ask new questions, to think outside that box. But certainly not shove our kids back in there. And the only way that's going to happen is through advocacy, putting pressure, figuring out new ways to hold folks accountable, and get them focused on outcomes instead of just protecting their precious system that seems to put, the wants of adults over the needs of kids. Angelica, one more last question I got to ask you before we let you go. Because we know you've been to Boston once before in 2004, speaking to the Democratic National Convention. So you've been here to Boston before, right?
So actually, I spoke remotely from Los Angeles. Yes. Right after former President Jimmy Carter spoke to the audience in Boston, they put me up on the screen. I was in Los Angeles, actually not far from where I live here at a local college, speaking about education of all things, and the things that are important for families, and the things that we wanted the candidate at the time to really focus on. It was really surreal. It was a one in a lifetime experience. Because I was behind a camera, I couldn't see folks or the response. But instantly, my short speech wasn't over before my phone started blowing up. It was pretty amazing.
Time I was covering for CBS News, so I was on Radio Row. So fun. When I learned that about you, I was like, oh my goodness, I didn't realize you weren't actually here in Boston. So you gotta come visit us. But I want to get your perspective on our national poll that we just released this week. Every single week we're doing a national poll of parents, because girl, you know this. If you don't have data and you don't have a poll, right, they'll reduce you to anecdote and blow you off. So we went out. We're doing the research. We're doing the hard work. Hired a pollster. Like, we're taking this very seriously because we want to be able to say with fidelity that this is what parents are feeling. This is what they support. This is what they don't. And so what came out in this poll was talking about reopening and who we trust to make the call. It's not surprising. We see Donald Trump coming out, 5% of folks saying, that's the guy I'm looking to tell me everything's all good. Mm-hmm. 8% of parents saying superintendents. So your friend Austin out there, making that call. Only 8% of parents saying that they trust that. It's really the CDC, the NIH, state and local health officials that parents are looking to for advice on this stuff. Does that ring true for you guys in Los Angeles?
Yeah, I'd say we're very fortunate to be in a state where our local elected officials, and our state officials, right from the ground up, have all maintained from the very beginning that the decision making would be based on a number of things. One of the critical things would be, what does science and data and the health officials tell us? And so we're really fortunate here in Los Angeles that has been what the decision making has been like. That has been what has seemed to be grounding a lot of our decision makers. So I'm pretty confident, and I trust that it'll continue to be that way, and that as they're making the decisions about schools reopening, that it'll be really grounded on science and data and what health officials are saying. I think that's one of the things that we're really fortunate about here, certainly in Los Angeles and in California. We hope that continues to be the guiding light for folks, but we also think it's also really important for them to hear from school leaders and from parents, right? Because there are going to be some nuances to the decisions that are going to be really grounded on the needs of families. So yeah, it completely resonates with me. It's not surprising. And I hope that we continue to make decisions here in Los Angeles, certainly in California, based on what health officials are saying and not what some, overhyped politician may be thinking out in the White House.
Well, we certainly, on this broadcast, we trust in President Governor Cuomo and President Governor Newsom to kind of give us some good direction. We follow those guys. God, do we need leadership right now in these moments? But that's the best we can do. That's the best we can do. And I'm glad that you joined us this morning and checked in with us from Los Angeles. Thank you for being with us, and I hope you'll keep us updated so we can collaborate. We want to steal from your best ideas and tactics so we can carry that to parents across the country and help them figure out how their voices can be heard as well. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Angelica Solis-Montero joining us from the LA Coalition for Excellent Public Schools in Los Angeles. Boy, they are in the thick of it, right?
They are.
Could you imagine, like, if you want to speak to the school board in Los Angeles, you have to physically go to the downtown location in LA, and you got to hop on public transportation. And if you're a single parent, you got to bring your babies and everything just so that you
That's
can.
insane.
What? Are you trying to tell me that you don't want to?
I mean, we were complaining last night. We were watching a school committee here in Somerville, Massachusetts, and we were upset that it only limited the entire public comment section to 20 minutes.
To 20 minutes, yeah. And, you know, at least you got 2 minutes.
Yeah,
know,
at least you
didn't
could do
have
it
to go there.
virtually.
You could do it virtually, but you had to be there, you had to show up,
Yeah.
you had to, like, holy
Wow.
goodness. But in LA, tough times. You know, we see you guys. So like, again, we say all the time, just because you're poor, black, or brown doesn't mean you're stupid.
Right.
We see you. It's quite clear that you don't want to hear from us if you're putting up a roadblock like that and you're expecting us to put our lives in danger because you need to physically see us during a pandemic. What is wrong with you guys?
Right.
Anyway, thanks for being with us this morning. A lively broadcast as always.
That's right. And before we sign off, a couple of things. If you are bored as an adult, please go on to womensday.com and look up 22 facts you might not have known about the Notebook. I found it wonderful. And also to a very special happy birthday to friend of the show and the National Parents Union, Virginia Walden Ford, and her beautiful sister.
Happy birthday, Miss Virginia. We love you.
Have a nice day, everyone.
Bye now.